In a back room, on a back road, in a dead backwater town. My mind a churning, my brain a burning, can't get no further down. Cause if I know what I think I know, and I think I see the light, then in a back room, on a back road, in a dead backwater town, I'll take my life.
From 1969 to 1980, the Jules Blattner and Warren Groovy All-Star Band burnt up the Midwest and the Southern and Eastern Seaboard rock circuit with scorching classic rock riffs and a stage show that redefined rock opera. With such protégés as Cheap Trick and REO Speedwagon, these mangy Midwesterners were high-energy stage performers with a persona and charisma to match. This is their story.
I'm at a restaurant in Milwaukee, and I see this rock and roll band, and the drummer is playing the drums with a cat, you know, meow, meow, and I'm freaking out until I see it's a stuffed cat. They had huge potential, except that they was missing that one element.
Jules Blattner, the lead singer and sometimes band shaman, was rooted in St. Louis blues from the 1950s. Jules was adopted by a roving band of black minstrels from the St. Louis Chitlin circuit. His upbringing as a token white boy was rich and replete with musical influences as varied as Jelly Roll Morton, B.B. King, Jerry Lee Lewis, Tony Bennett, Charlie Bird Parker, and Buddy Holly. Having a solid foundation in jazz, blues, and rock, Jules took his adopted parents' surname and started his first band in 1957. Jules Blattner and the Teen Tones. This band became a major St. Louis sensation and strung together 3 top 100 hits in the fall of 1958. After appearances on Bandstand and the highly popular St. Louis-based Dance and Shake Your Thing dance show, the Teen Tones were poised for superstardom. Tragedy, though, was right around the corner. Early 1959 was a year ripe with success and great expectations. After recording with Chuck Berry on his Live in London album, which, strangely enough, was recorded in Chicago, Jules' band, the Teen Tones, were asked to be the house band for the wildly popular Dance and Shake Your Thing dance show. Their third appearance that season started off with a rousing performance and a huge crowd reaction. Jules, riding this great adrenaline rush, jumped behind the wheel of his brand new 1959 Corvette. While traveling at 140 miles an hour, Jules smashed his car into St. Louis's Hotel Nord.
Somebody broke the front of the hotel and looking for cookies. I did it. Thank you.
After being rushed to St. Louis Presbyterian Hospital, his incredibly tight rock pants had to be cut off. This seemingly commonplace medical procedure showcased the fact that Jules had taped a bratwurst to his privates.
We tried to keep it hush-hush, but fate and coincidence were against us. One of my nurses was a really big fan of the band, and coincidentally enough, her father was the owner of Parker Made Bratwurst. Well, she spotted the opportunity for a little marketing coup, and it didn't work out. It backfired, and sadly, in a real short period of time, the word was out.
During a successful 1968 tour of the Hawaiian Islands, the Twist Tones caught the eye of a USO talent scout. Jules, who already had people believing he was in the Peace Corps, knew he had to do the patriotic thing.
The world people. And all these people would come out of the mountains and do and stuff. And I was sitting at the table and I was going, what the is this? And they're going, well, who the are you? And I'm going, well, who the are you? And they're going, well, we're doing government. And I said, well, can I get a steak? And they went, very cool. And so they gave me steaks and stuff. It was the Peace Corps. They thought I was in the Peace Corps.
After a year performing for the troops in Vietnam, Japan, Thailand, Singapore, and Korea, where he tried to defect to the other side, obviously he did not blend in. It was stateside, where a newly patriotic Jules was given a new opportunity. The year was 1969, the heyday of the hippie and acid rock scene. 4 young men from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, drummer Ron Bullock, lead guitar and vocals Warren Groovy, backup vocals and guitar Jim Clark, and bass player Flip Phillips, started a band that they named Genesis. 2 months later, Peter Gabriel's and Phil Collins' band, Genesis, made it on the international scene, thus prompting a name change to the Warren Groovy All-Star Band.
I tried telling my brother Flip repeatedly, do not use the name of a book of the Bible for the name of your band, unless you are right with God. Now, months later, Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins' Genesis made it on the international scene, and I think it was God's way of telling them, Studio.
With a fresh name and a fresh look, the band caught the attention of expatriate English-Australian band manager Reginald Rothschild.
So I go up to the bandmates and I tell them about Jules Blattner. Now, they look at me like I am wasted, which I was, but I convinced them to give him a chance.
Do it! Do it!
So they brought the tape over to our home, and the reason I remember the years because we had moved in that house just a few years before. And they listened to the tape, and Jules sang along several times, and I really enjoy hearing the way he sings, his voice, something about it. And of course he was had an old hat on, I believe, but not much else. In fact, he was naked.
Jules and the band, they all carried guns and were just stone crazy. So they told us about this time when they were in Minneapolis in front of 20,000 people, and while Blattner was on stage, Sean and I went in their dressing room and ate all their sandwiches. So the Blattner band decided that they would get even with Sean and I. So they loaded up their smoke machine with some extra oil and oiled the whole stage up. And when Sean and I came running on stage, they just ended up just sliding right off the stage. So seeing that there's only 3 of us and 5 of them, we decided, I don't think we can afford to play with the Jules Blattner band.
Even though the band members came from different backgrounds with uniquely different skills, their first big hit came in June of 1969. Mountains on the Moon, about NASA's impending trip to the moon, reached the top 100, peaking at number 96. Written as a team effort, it sprung forth controversy within the band and from within NASA's Aeronautical Research and Development Team. Mountains on the Moon became a cult sensation, but it ruffled a few feathers within the group. Warren was adamant about keeping his lyrical edition, floating through space in our turbo-powered, gerbil-powered spaceship. But Jules and the rest of the band vetoed the line, thus engendering the enmity of Warren. To make matters worse, the top brass at NASA felt the band was in collusion with the Soviet space program. because of the ingenious way the band thought the astronauts would get their oxygen.
I mean, for bloody sake, you mean the Russians would create and construct a 10,000-mile air tube for the oxygen? I think the real reason was the lost line, the turbo-gerbil spaceman. I think the Russians had created a hybrid, half man, half gerbil, a real virile cosmonaut with a long tail that they was going to send up in space.
This intrusion by NASA and subsequent innuendo that they were somehow helping the Soviets had Jules seeing red through the sights of his M1 carbine, that is. In 1970, the band, with Speedos in hand, became one of the first big bands to perform for the growing throngs of college students frequenting Daytona Beach during spring break. During this time, they perfected their famous stage persona and craftsmanship as rock and rollers and performers of rock art. Warren especially enjoyed all of the glistening rock-hard bodies and all of the illicit frat boy hijinks. He also met a then 19-year-old local Daytona waitress, Glenda Pipcorn. Their short but scorching love affair bore the fruit of a healthy baby boy.
Well, when I first met Warren, he was really pretty shy, and I think it was the first time he was ever with a woman. But we had an affair, and Michael was born from that. We never got married, you know, it was the 70s. But Warren wanted to support our son. So he staged a benefit in Fort Lauderdale in order to gain money for a scholarship fund. But he only got $2,350. We never saw it. It was stolen or lost or something. So, you know, that's the way it is.
I found out a few years ago from Reginald, the band manager, that my own father, Warren Groovy, stole that $200 or $2,500, which would have been my college tuition. And he spent it with his frat boy friends on liquor and what have you. And then he spent the rest of it on an exotic pet snake and a cruel alcoholic monkey. That was my college tuition. You cruel bastard.
Alcohol became a driving force, not only for their monkey, but the entire band as well. Jim Clark literally as well as figuratively had a monkey on his back. His drinking problem had grown increasingly worse as the 70s progressed. His only help and salvation came in 1988 when, during an intervention, his old bandmates took him to the Alcohol Anonymous sponsored Michael Jordan Clinic for double dribblers. Thankfully, Jim has been dribble-free.
Yeah, that Clark, I remember he had quite a drinking problem. Yeah, that amateur archaeologist, he always had to have something on the rocks.
You know how you've enjoyed the party out here this afternoon?
I think it's the best party I've ever seen.
Jules, ever the fashion mogul, was always into the new avant-garde minimalist fashions of the day.
Jules was on the cutting edge of fashion. I remember he created and helped popularize the weenie hammock, the grape smuggler, the sausage sling. You know, what is that called? What is that called? Oh, the Speedo.
The mid-1970s brought about their second top 100 hit on the MGM label, Back on the Road Again, with such high-profile fans as a young John Belushi and Ed Begley Jr. This helped to solidify their position as the best live rock and roll show in rock. From Jules-inspired stage performance of the Cisco Kid to their 18-minute divinely inspired Jesus Christ Superstar, nobody in rock could compare. During this time, they also took two struggling bands under their wing, Rockford's Cheap Trick and REO Speedwagon, which both copied their stage bravado and chutzpah, and they became superstars in their own right. The raw, embryonic music videos that Warren Groovy, Jules Blattner, and the rest of the band created also inspired MTV and other music video outlets. Ted Nugent, Sha-Na-Na, Ricky Nelson and the Stone Canyon Band, REO Speedwagon, Loverboy, and a host of others were clamoring to perform with this legendary stage band. But the winds of rock and roll change were flatulating right around the corner.
My only regret was not telling the other bandmates about Jules' idiosyncrasies. For penance, Jules used to dress up like a woman and literally crawl into mass. I mean, dressing up like a woman, he might have been breaking one of the church's 10 amendments.
The late 1970s brought a change to the live music scene. Young people started opting for shaking their groove things, not at live concerts, but for sweaty, overpaid DJs in sweaty, overcrowded discotheques. The smell of polyester, hairspray, and back sweat permeated the night air. Jules and the rest of the boys realized that their style of live rock opera was dwindling in popularity. They decided that after 11 years, they should go their separate ways and pursue other venues. Jules continued with his musical skills, playing in rock bands, and most recently with a hybrid rock and blues outfit that's sponsored by Viagra, Metamucil, and Depends Undergarments. Warren, still blessed with great rock and roll hair, dabbles in music, but works as a computer specialist and as an advocate for the Save the Gerbil Foundation. Ron Bullock, the intent-shy, brilliant one, operates one of the most successful video and television production houses in the Midwest. Jim Clark is an anthropologist for the University of Milwaukee and recently was at the Egyptian archaeological dig of King Nipsentits. After struggling as an itinerant homeless person, Flip Phillips works as a Bill Clinton impersonator. From Genesis to Revelations, the Jules Blattner and Warren Groovy All-Star Band was filled with great stories, poignant parables, and a show filled with holy terror. For Behind the Untold Story, I'm Dan Stone.